Hey guys, Morgan's Maintenance. Today's tool review is going to be a Milwaukee hand tool. I actually found this. I was in between jobs as far as I had another appointment to go to, but it was going to be a little bit away. So I went to Home Depot, went back to the electrical section, was checking out the tools because they've been putting out new stuff. And I came across this Milwaukee self-adjusting stripper. The part number on this is 48223082. And it's going to run you about $21 or $20.97. They also have an automatic stripper right next to it that's a little bit smaller, but it's the kind that has where you have to put the exact wire in the right hole, and it's similar to this one. I don't really care for that. I've actually had one of those before. I think it was maybe Southwire or something like that. I don't like that because it's hard for me to see where I'm putting that wire at, and it's not just as easy and intuitive as it is just using a pair of strippers where I can sit there and see those numbers, or you memorize it's the third hole up, second hole up, all those things like that. And the one thing that kind of stood out to me amongst this, I kind of bought this more so for you guys. I'm going to use it occasionally for a couple of specific purposes that I'll show you. It's not going to be a tool that I use a lot, but I thought, well, it looks useful, and it had one claim on it, and maybe my other pliers, because I think I used to have a pair of maybe Irwins or something like that that was very similar to these. But I noticed on this one that it's solid 10 to 20 gauge, stranded 12 to 22 gauge, but then it also says NM cable or Romex 14.2 and 12.2 that it takes the sheathing off of it. I don't know that my last pairs did that or not, but these claim to do that. And again, it's got fast strip, self-adjusting. It does have adjustable tension and length, and then also a built-in cutter. I'll show you all those things, but the NM sheathing remover was kind of what interested me in these and made me want to try to go ahead and try it and get it, because normally I use a pair of Kleins like this. I think the part number on this is K1412, but these are what I use to strip the sheathing normally. But you've got to be kind of careful with pliers like these. I don't know if it's all pliers. This is the only pair I've ever owned that actually takes the sheathing off of the Romex cable. But if you go a little bit, too deep, sometimes it will score that wire, making it real susceptible to breaking whenever you get in there and start working in the box. And that's pretty bad, because a lot of times you'll go up inside of a box to strip that sheathing off, and if it breaks that wire back that far, you're going to have a pretty short wire if you don't have a maintenance loop or something up in there to be able to pull some more wire in. So I saw that, and I thought the very few times that I deal with Romex, maybe I like that a little bit better. Or also the fact that, maybe you're working in a panel, it's going to be a lot easier maybe on your hands to sit there and squeeze this and make it work. So I went to my new Bed Bath & Beyond wire rack. Maybe you saw the short where I ripped out all the shelving in the old Bed Bath & Beyond. Well, I brought some of it home and got it in my garage. I checked my garage to see what all wires I have that kind of work within the framework of what they have here. So I don't have everything, to show you, but I'm going to show you what I have as far as if it fits in there. How does this strip? How does it work? How does it cut? All those things like that. So let's go ahead and get into what this tool can do. So as we look at these pliers, again, just looking at the features of it all, it has a cutter down here. They've got it in the picture showing that it is cutting 12.2 Romex. You can see the yellow sheathing on there. I'm going to show you that because just in me trying it a little bit, that's a little bit tough. I don't know that that's really something that they should be claiming. Will it do it? Yes, but it's not very easy. Then it also has adjustable tension and length, so you can adjust the length by turning this knob, loosening that up. That's going to loosen this right here and allow you to move that in and out. So if you want to get something to an exact length so that you strip it to exact length over and over again, you could set this, tighten that down. That's going to keep that in place, or you can loosen it and move it completely out of the way. For instance, if you're going to be doing the sheathing on that NM cable, that would be good that you can get this out. That way you can go far back into the cable and strip off quite a bit and give yourself a long length of wire to deal with. Then it also has a tension adjust right here where you can adjust the tension of how much it grips. Maybe it's leaving too much teeth marks on your insulation and you want to just change it up a little bit, or maybe because you're going to a real small wire or a real big wire, you need to change it a little bit. You're able to do that as well. So again, it does 10 to 20 solids, what it says, 12 to 22 stranded, and then 12.2 and 14.2 NM cable. I grabbed out of that box everything that I got that kind of fits within that mode, so I'm just going to show you those. So we're going to start out with, here is I believe that it's a 14 stranded, but I'm not real sure. I couldn't find any writing on this. This is just some loose wire I had laying around. So you just stick it in like so, and then clamp your hands together, pulls that off, and leaves you that pretty decent clean cut. And the thing about these strippers, it's probably nice compared to anything else, is it's really just tearing the insulation off. So it shouldn't affect your wires whatsoever. You don't have to worry about it at all as far as nicking your wires. And then I also don't mind, it depends on how far out you go, whether or not this comes all the way off or not, but I actually don't mind it leaving a little bit on the end of the wire like that, because that keeps it from flinging over into somebody's living room floor or whatever it is. It's easier for me to pull that off and throw it in my little pouch for trash on my side than it is to find this on the floor to pick it back up again later if you wanted to do that. So again, I think that's 14 stranded, no problem at all. If it's either 14 or 16, but it says that it will go from 12 to 22. Here is some 12 stranded, and this is that THNN. So this is what you would get off of like a coil pack, or maybe if you go buy a roll of wire at Home Depot. We'll go ahead and look at this cutter down here on the individual wire. As far as for cutting wire, goes right through it. So that cutter works well for individual wires. Stick this in, grab it. This was the wire that I've had problems with, because this one almost has like 2 coatings on it. So you can see if I take that, it's almost pulling off this outside coating right here. And then it finally gets to it. So this is the one wire where every now and then it will cut it clean, but then sometimes you got to almost kind of do it twice. I'll cut that off again, and let me pull on it. I'm going to pull on it right here pretty hard. And see, it kind of pulls that outside sheeting, kind of bundles it up. So for this wire right here, you've got to do it almost twice to be able to get it however you want to do it. So that's the one bad wire. Of course, I've tried this on many things before I'm shooting this video, so I got a rough idea of what it's going to do. This wire right here is about the only wire that it's kind of, to me, it's a little iffy on of whether or not I'd say it really works good on it. It's like it will work. See, like right there, I did it one time and it worked that time. It will work, but it doesn't work great on this specific cable because it has 2 different, almost like it's got a clear sheathing with all this writing over your insulation, so it has a hard time pulling on those. This is kind of really what I even kind of wanted it for, because as I mentioned, it's got this stop on it, so I could take this stop and set it wherever I need to set it, which is probably about right around in there. If I wanted to, because a lot of times when I'm using Wagos, I'm using 14 gauge of this wire, and then I could get my stop set to work with my strip, and then that way I could stick that, it butts it up against there. And see, that time it pulled the sheathing with that writing on it, that little clear part off, and then I got to go back in that second time, and then it still didn't even get it that time. This doesn't do a good job on this wire right here. So let me know in the comments below if that's the case on any of these, or if it's specific to this Milwaukee. I've had a hard time with this one. So that kind of stinks for me, because this wire is what I use a lot of times, and I was planning on setting that stop to work to where it would work exactly in there. But that's the idea to me of the good thing about this stop. If you're using any other wire besides this one, you could set that stop and then have it set up to where it works with your Wagos on the right depth all the time. So this is the 10 stranded. So this is actually outside the rim of what it claims to do. It says it will do 12 to 22 stranded. So if I come in here with the 10 stranded, let me go ahead and move that stop out of the way so I'm not dealing with that anymore. And lock that down. 10 stranded will do it. So even though that's above the range of what it said it would do, it still will pull that insulation off there. And again, a lot of this is probably going to have to deal with the insulation that's around the wire that you're using. Here's some 10 gauge solid. This is supposedly the max of what it will do on the solid. And then I've got the tension set pretty far, so it didn't do very good on that one. Got it that time. So again, you got to kind of, it's hit or miss sometimes. You got to really press fast. If you kind of just barely press it and do a slow squeeze, sometimes it gets it, sometimes it doesn't. Will it cut the 10? That's pretty tough. It did it, but it's pretty tough. But again, we'll see here. I mean, it's definitely harder than using a pair of diagonals or any other pair of strippers, the Knipex cutters or anything like that. So that's individual wires, 10 gauge, all those. Here's some 12 of the Romex or NM. Again, this is what it shows in the picture, that the cutter will cut this, and I've done it, and it will do it. But you've got to both hand it. So me personally, that's just too much work. I wouldn't do that. Here's some 14-2. That's not as bad. I've got some 14-3. The cutter cuts through that too. But that 12-2, that was a little rough to get through, in my opinion. So now let's go to the NM sheathing, or the Romex sheathing. This is 14-2, which this is within its range. So you can come in there, stick it through. So I could come to, if I'm doing a panel or something like that and I want to pull off a lot of wire, it does a pretty good job. I mean, it's really nice. I like it much better than using this, because I know that I didn't nick that wire right then. Basically, it's just tearing this insulation off. I know the wires are going to be 100% good. No nicks or anything on there. You can see the ground wire there, even maybe if I can get in there. Nothing on that at all. So it does a pretty good job. That's 14-2. Here's 12-2. Run that through, and then you squeeze your hands, pops like that, and then that's got some teeth marks on there. But again, I could lower that adjustment, but that's not really affecting anything other than the looks of it. It's still not going to affect the wire. Didn't do any nicking or anything like that in there. So I could adjust the tension down. We'll do that, and I'll see what the teeth marks look like a little farther down. Still about the same. This is as far as the tension thing will go. It won't hardly do it, so didn't really make much difference on the teeth marks, but that did make it really hard to do. So turning that tension back up. So does a pretty decent job on NM cable, in my opinion. Here's also some 14-3, which is above what it said that it could do. It just said 14-2 and then 12-2, but I got some 14-3, thought I'd try it, because a lot of times you're going to be dealing with 14-3, probably more so than 12-3 on lighting circuits going to switches. So you can put it in there. It does make it as far as the width of it, and it will do it too. So you can still do 14-3. It does it. See if there's any kind of damage to the wire. Look, looks 100% perfect. So 14-3 is still a possibility for you to be able to do. I don't think there's any way you'll be able to do 12-3. It's going to be outside of the width of what you've got here, where 14-3 will fit. 12-3 is just not going to do it. It's not going to go in there. You're going to have a piece of it probably hanging out over here, and it's just not going to want to do it. So again, overall, are they the perfect pair of strippers? Absolutely not. I'm probably going to pretty much use them 100% myself as a replacement for these in a lot of situations. But now, are you going to be able to fit this into a box and use it the same way you do these? Probably not, but I've gotten to where I don't do that in a box with these anyways, because I have a bad time of it maybe nicking a wire or something like that. And maybe you guys know of a better brand of something out there besides these Kleins here, or maybe I've just got a bad pair of Kleins that it's just set too far, but there's really no adjustment on it. You know, I don't see anywhere where I can make it maybe not go. That's what I do now, is I just by hand, I don't squeeze it as tight as I used to, or whatever it is, but that's really all you can do with that. But overall, they're not the best strippers in the world, depending upon what wire you're using. Again, this wire right here is the wire I end up using a lot, because it's what we pull in conduit. And if I had to sit there and do that 15 times over and over again just to strip it once, that would drive me crazy, which this wire is maybe sometimes a little bit harder to strip, even with regular strippers, but I don't really have much problem with my Knipex forged wire strippers whenever I use those. So overall, again, is it for everybody? Absolutely not. But is it for somebody? Probably so. I just bought it so that you guys could see what it could do before you spent your $21, and it will probably be my new Romex sheathing remover, and then it probably does a decent enough job on the, here's some 12 solid. Yeah, see, it does fine on all this NM cable stuff. So if you're an NM cable, I would say probably not that bad of a stripper for you to own. You know, it's not a bad deal. Here's the 14. Pulled that right off. Pulled that right off. Works real good on that. You get into some of the stranded wire that people use, you might want to think about passing on it. But let me know in the comments below what you think about it. Maybe especially if you've had this, do you have the same experience with the wires that I'm using here, or is it just something maybe I'm doing different, or maybe I don't have something set right? But I've tried that every which way on all these wires, and it doesn't seem to make much of a difference. But maybe you've got another brand out there as well that does the same exact thing, and it strips the NM sheathing off as well, Romex sheathing off. Maybe my last pair did it, and again, I just didn't know that it did, and I should have probably tried that before I got rid of them. But nevertheless, again, I'm just doing this to help you guys out before you spend your money. You can make the decision for yourself based on what I did here. If maybe what you do in your line of work, what wire you use the most, whether or not this is the right tool for you. But hope it was useful. You guys stay safe. Have a blessed day. See you on the next video.